A billionaire searched the world for the best chefs, but his disabled daughter refused every meal. She only wanted the taste of her mummy's food. In a very big house with shiny walls and golden gates lived a billionaire named Mr. William. He was very rich, so rich that he had more cars than he could count. His house looked like a king's palace. But inside that big house, something important was missing. Mr. William had a little daughter named Judith. She was only 5 years old. She was beautiful, with a smile that could light up a whole room. But Judith had not smiled in a very long time. Her mother was gone. Judith's mother died in a terrible road accident. She and Judith were in the same car that day. Only Judith survived, but the accident left her unable to walk. Since then, she had been using a wheelchair. From that moment, Judith stopped laughing. She stopped playing. She even stopped eating. Mr. William tried everything to help her. He bought her all kinds of food: rice, chicken, cake, even her favorite ice cream. But Judith would just shake her head and whisper, "I want mommy's food." Every morning, she sat at the big dining table in her wheelchair. She would look at her plate, sniff the food, touch it with her tiny spoon, then push it away. "This is not mommy's food," she would say with tears filling her eyes. Mr. William's heart was breaking. He could not bear to see his daughter suffer like that. One night, he hugged her tightly and whispered, "Judith, my baby, I know you miss mommy, but please, you have to eat." But Judith shook her head again. "Only mommy's food tastes like love." Those words cut deep into Mr. William's heart. He knew he could not remain helpless. So he made a big decision. He called all his assistants and said, "Search the whole world. Bring me the best cooks, French, Chinese, Nigerian, Italian, anyone who can cook food that tastes like love." And that was how his hunt for a miracle began. The next day, Mr. William's house was filled with chefs in white coats. They came with spoons, pots, and plates, each ready to cook their very best meals. Soon, the whole mansion smelled of jollof rice, spaghetti, fried rice, meatballs, and pepper soup. When the food was ready, Judith was brought to the dining table in her wheelchair. One by one, she tasted the dishes. She sniffed. She frowned. She shook her head. "It's not mommy's food," she said quietly, her voice weak and sad. The chefs looked confused. They had used the best spices, the best ingredients, but something was missing. Mr. William rubbed his forehead and sat beside his daughter. He felt tired and helpless. "What should I do, my baby? Please tell me," he begged softly. Judith looked up at him with sad eyes and whispered, "Maybe someone like mommy can cook for me." Mr. William froze for a moment. Her words touched him deeply. Someone like mommy. Someone who cooks with love. Someone whose food feels warm and kind. He realized it wasn't about expensive chefs or big kitchens. Judith needed a cook whose heart felt like her mother's. And that thought became the beginning of a new search. Far away from the tall buildings and shiny cars, there was a poor area called River Lane Trenches. The roads were dusty. The gutters smelled. The houses were built from old wood and broken zinc. Life there was hard. But in the middle of that hardship lived a young woman named Victoria. Victoria was 26 years old. She was beautiful and had the kindest smile anyone could ever see. But her clothes were old, her slippers were worn out, and her hands had small wounds from too much work. Every morning before the sun came out, Victoria tied her scarf, carried her cooking pot, her firewood, and a small bag of ingredients. Then she walked to her tiny cooking spot by the roadside. She had no shop. She had no roof. Just a small open space beside a cracked wall where she placed 3 blocks to hold her pot. She would bend down, blow on the firewood until the flames came alive, and then she would start cooking. Victoria cooked with love. She cooked with joy. Even though she had little, her food carried a sweet taste that came straight from her heart. People in the area, bricklayers, taxi drivers, shoe shiners, and children returning from school, loved her food. They sat on empty paint buckets and broken benches, licking their fingers and smiling. "Victoria, this food is very sweet," they would say. And Victoria would laugh softly and reply, "As long as your stomach is full, I am happy." But not everyone liked Victoria. Just across the road was a flashy fast food restaurant called Sweet Taste. The building was painted gold and silver, and only big cars stopped there. The owner was a proud and rude woman named Nancy, and she had two close friends, Hannah and Agnes. They wore tight clothes, heavy makeup, and always acted like they were better than everyone else. Every time they drove past Victoria's cooking spot in their loud, shiny car, they would wind down the window, laugh, and shout, "Look at that girl again beside that abandoned stall, using cheap ingredients." Victoria the firewood cooker. Are you cooking for humans or for dogs? Who even eats this kind of dirty rice? Sometimes, just to make fun of her, they would get down from the car and walk over to her pot. They would pretend to admire the food. Then suddenly, without warning, they would kick her small table or push her pot. One evening, Nancy poured Victoria's hot soup into the gutter and said, "You are cooking rubbish, and you're using it to take away my customers." People around were angry. They shouted, "Why did you do that? Victoria did nothing to you." But Victoria did not fight. She did not shout. She only wiped her tears, sat down quietly, and said softly, "God is watching. My story will change one day." That night, Victoria went back home. But her home was not like other homes. It was a small leaking room behind an old house that nobody lived in. Her mattress was flat. Her curtain had holes. She sat on the floor, hugged her knees, and looked up. "God, I'm not asking to be rich. I just want peace. I just want to cook and be happy." Victoria did not know that far away, inside the biggest house in the city, a little girl was crying. A billionaire's only daughter. She was crying not for toys, not for clothes, but for food that tasted like love. The next morning, Victoria woke up early as usual. She tied her scarf, packed her cooking pot, her firewood, and her ingredients. Her stomach was empty, but she smiled to herself and said quietly, "Today will be better." She walked down the dusty path to her cooking spot and knelt to set the fire. Soon, her food was ready, and the air filled with a sweet smell of jollof rice and pepper soup. People stopped immediately just to buy jollof rice and beans. Children passing by paused and inhaled the aroma with happy faces. Even with all her hardship, Victoria's food made people happy. That was her joy, knowing her food brought peace to others. But as the sun rose higher, something unexpected happened. A black SUV slowly stopped near Victoria's cooking spot. The windows were tinted. The doors opened. A tall, neat man in a black suit stepped out, followed by two other men. Victoria froze, her hand still stirring the pot. People around looked up, whispering, "Who are these people?" One of the men walked up to Victoria and asked in a serious voice, "Are you the one who cooks here every day?" Victoria looked around, confused. She wiped her hands on her wrapper and replied gently, "Yes, sir, I am." The man nodded and brought out his phone. "Please come with us. Someone important wants to see you." Victoria stepped back, scared. "But why? What did I do? I didn't commit any crime." The man quickly shook his head. "You are not in trouble, miss. We just need your help. Please." Victoria looked at her half-done pot of rice. She looked at the people watching her. Her hands trembled. Slowly, she picked up her small bag and followed them. They drove for a long time, out of the trenches, past clean, wide roads, into areas Victoria had never seen in her life. Her eyes widened when they entered a tall gate guarded by uniformed security men. The compound was huge. It looked like a dream, almost like a real palace. They helped her out of the car and led her inside. There, in the middle of a large living room, sat Mr. William, the billionaire. His face looked tired. His suit was neat, but his heart looked heavy. Beside him sat Judith, holding her teddy bear, her cheeks pale, her eyes tired. She sat quietly in her wheelchair. When Judith saw Victoria, she blinked gently. Mr. Williams stood up. "This is the woman," he said. "Yes, sir," one of the guards replied. Mr. William turned to Victoria. "Madam, I am sorry for bringing you here like this, but I have tried everything. My daughter has not been eating well since my wife died. She is looking malnourished and weak in her wheelchair. I brought chefs from all over the world, but she only wants her mother's food." He swallowed hard and continued. "Yesterday, she said maybe someone who cooks with love, like her mommy, can help. That is why we brought you." My late wife's mother recommended you. She said people in your neighborhood always talk about how your food tastes warm and homemade, just like her daughter's. Victoria's mouth opened slightly. She looked at the little girl. Their eyes met. Judith slowly rolled her wheelchair forward until she reached Victoria. She looked up at her face, then gently held her hand. You smell like Mommy's kitchen, she whispered. Tears filled Victoria's eyes. She bent down and softly touched Judith's hair. For the first time in many months. Judith smiled. Mr. Williams' heart jumped with hope. Please, he said quickly. Can you cook something for her? Anything. Just make her taste food again. Victoria wiped her tears, stood up, and nodded. I will try. And that was how Victoria, the poor girl from the trenches, entered the billionaire's kitchen. She washed her hands, tied her scarf tighter, and asked for simple ingredients, nothing expensive. Onions, pepper, crayfish, tomatoes. She lit the fire just like she did by the roadside. As the pot boiled, the kitchen filled with the sweet smell of real home-cooked food. Judith rolled into the kitchen, sniffed the air, and her eyes lit up. That's it. That's Mommy's smell. When Victoria finally served the food and placed a plate in front of Judith, everyone held their breath. Judith took one spoon, then another, then another. Then she laughed, a loud, happy laugh. It tastes like Mommy's food. Mr. Williams sat down and covered his face with his hands. Tears rolled down his cheeks. For the first time since his wife died, he felt hope again. And Victoria, the poor girl who once cooked beside a broken wall, was now the one holding the heart of a billionaire's daughter. From that day, everything changed for Victoria. Mr. William was deeply touched. He didn't waste time. He turned to his security men and said, "Prepare a room for her in the guest house. From now on, Victoria will stay here." Victoria's eyes widened. "So, you mean I should live here?" Mr. William nodded gently. "Yes. You are the only one who made my daughter eat happily again. You are not just a cook now. You are family." Victoria could hardly believe it. Just the day before, she was cooking by the roadside under the hot sun, surrounded by hunger, insults, and mockery. And now, she was cooking in a golden kitchen for the daughter of the richest man in the city. Later that night, after Victoria bathed and changed into clean clothes given to her by the maids, she sat on the soft bed in the guest house. She touched the smooth white bedsheet and whispered, "God, is this real?" Meanwhile, little Judith did not want to sleep until Victoria came to her room. Judith sat in her wheelchair beside her bed, hugging her teddy bear tightly. "Can I call you Auntie Victoria?" she asked with sleepy eyes. Victoria smiled softly and nodded. "Yes, my love. You can call me anything you want." Judith yawned, rested her head on her teddy bear, and whispered, "Thank you for cooking the meal my mummy used to cook for me." Victoria gently patted her hair until the little girl's eyes closed and she fell asleep peacefully. Across the city, Nancy, Hannah, and Agnes were sitting in their usual spot at the Sweet Taste restaurant. Agnes was scrolling through her phone when she suddenly paused. Wait. Is this not that roadside cook?" she shouted. Nancy leaned closer. "Let me see." All three of them stared at the screen. It was a picture posted by a popular news blog. Billionaire's daughter eats for the first time in months, thanks to a poor roadside cook named Victoria. Nancy's face turned red with jealousy. What nonsense is this? That same Victoria is cooking inside Mr. Williams' mansion. Hannah hissed. What did she even cook? Tasteless rice. They all laughed bitterly, but their laughter was weak. The truth was hurting their hearts. They remembered how they used to mock her, how they threw away her food, how they called her dirty. And now, she was inside a palace. Nancy slammed her phone on the table and stood up sharply. I must see this with my own eyes, she snapped. She thinks she's better than us now? Cooking inside a billionaire's mansion. Her voice rose with anger. We need to go there tomorrow and expose her. That rich man needs to know she's a dirty girl who used to cook beside the gutter. He should not trust someone like her. Hannah and Agnes nodded quickly. Jealousy burned in their eyes. All three agreed. They would go to Mr. Williams' mansion the next day, not to congratulate Victoria, but to destroy her new life. The next day, Victoria was settling into her new routine. She went straight to the kitchen, set everything in order, and began preparing lunch. Even the other staff in the house had grown to love her because her food made them happy. One of the housemaids, Sandra, walked up to her and said, "Victoria, your food is too sweet. Even the gods lick their plates clean." Victoria laughed shyly. "I just put my heart into it." Mr. Williams stood at a distance watching her. He smiled and shook his head slowly. "How did a girl from the trenches bring so much peace into my house?" he thought. He walked closer. "Victoria, thank you again. You didn't just cook food. You healed my daughter." Victoria smiled and bowed her head slightly. "So, I'm only doing what I know how to do." Mr. William paused. He looked at her for a moment. There was something about her, something pure, something gentle, something familiar. His heart moved, but he didn't understand why. Suddenly, the gate security radioed in. "Sir, 3 ladies at the gate. They said they know Victoria and want to see her." Mr. William raised his brow. "Send me their names." A few seconds later, a message came in. "Nancy, Hannah, Agnes." Mr. William turned slowly to Victoria. "Do you know these people?" Victoria's smile vanished. Her hands shook. Her heart began to beat fast. "Yes, sir. They are from the same neighborhood I came from." Mr. William folded his arms. "Should I allow them in?" Victoria swallowed hard. She looked down with heavy thoughts, then looked up. "Yes, sir. Let them in." Because she was no longer the same girl they used to insult. The large golden gate opened slowly, and a black car rolled in with Nancy, Hannah, and Agnes seated inside. Their makeup was heavy, but behind all the powder was something they could not hide, how surprised and shocked they truly were. They couldn't believe their eyes. The compound was massive. The flowers were perfectly trimmed. The ground shone like glass. Security men stood tall in sharp uniforms. Everything around them screamed wealth. "Is this really where Victoria lives now?" Hannah whispered. Nancy folded her arms tightly. "I don't care where she lives. She's still the same street girl in my eyes." Inside the mansion, Victoria stood beside Mr. William. Her hands were cold, her heart heavy, but she stood tall. She refused to look weak. Not today. Soon, the 3 women entered the living room. Their heels clicked loudly on the marble floor. When they saw Victoria standing beside Mr. William, they stopped. Their mouths opened slightly. Victoria wore a simple but neat gown. Her scarf was clean. Her skin looked fresh. There was no sign of the suffering they once mocked. Nancy forced a fake smile. "Victoria, wow, you look different." Victoria didn't smile back. She looked at them calmly and said, "What do you want?" Hannah blinked. "We just came to see if the news was true." Agnes added, "You really live here?" Mr. Williams stepped forward. "She doesn't just live here. She is the reason my daughter is alive and happy. And yes, she is under my care now." Nancy's smile dropped. Her pride cracked. "But she's just a roadside, dirty girl," she muttered. Mr. William looked at her, without blinking. "You judge her by where she came from. I see her heart. And that heart saved my child." Nancy bit her lip. Hannah and Agnes stayed silent. The room felt heavy. Then something surprising happened. Judith rolled into the living room in her wheelchair, hugging her teddy bear tightly. "Auntie Victoria. Auntie Victoria," she called happily. When she reached the living room and saw the 3 women, she frowned. She turned to her father. "Daddy, who are they?" Mr. Williams smiled softly. "They are old friends of Auntie Victoria." Judith turned back to them and crossed her tiny arms. "They don't look nice." Nancy's face burned with embarrassment. Victoria gently touched Judith's hand. "Sweetheart, let's go and finish your lunch." As they moved away, Mr. William turned to the 3 women. "I think it's time for you to leave. Victoria is not the person you used to know. She is respected here." Nancy opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She slowly turned and walked out. Hannah and Agnes followed behind her. Their heels sounded weak now, like footsteps of defeat. Back in the kitchen, Victoria helped Judith finish her food and gently wiped her mouth. Judith giggled softly. "Auntie Victoria, can I grow up and cook like you?" Victoria laughed gently. "Yes, my love. And even better." From the hallway, Mr. Williams stood watching them. There was something peaceful about the scene, like his house had finally found light again. He turned to his personal assistant and said, "Prepare contract. I want Victoria to become Judith's full-time caregiver, and I want to help her build something of her own." The assistant blinked. "Something like what, sir?" Mr. Williams smiled. "Her own restaurant. Her name deserves to shine." But Victoria didn't know any of this yet. She was simply happy to see Judith eating, laughing, and growing again. She had no idea her life was about to change even more. That evening, the sky was painted in soft orange. Birds were flying home, and a gentle breeze moved through the tall trees around Mr. Williams' mansion. Inside the house, everything felt calm and peaceful. Victoria was in the kitchen, quietly washing plates. She had just finished preparing dinner for Judith, mashed yam and garden egg sauce, just the way Judith liked it. Mr. William walked into the kitchen. He watched Victoria for a moment. She didn't notice him. Her hands moved gently as she scrubbed the plates, and she hummed softly, like a mother caring for her home. "Victoria," he said gently. She looked up quickly and wiped her wet hands on her apron. "Good evening, so." Mr. Williams smiled. "You don't have to call me sir anymore. Just William is fine." Victoria smiled shyly and nodded. "Okay, William." He walked closer and leaned on the marble table. "Victoria, I have something to tell you." She paused. "Is something wrong?" He shook his head. "No, everything is right. You brought joy back into this house. My daughter laughs again. She sleeps peacefully. She eats with happiness, and you made that possible." Victoria looked down, feeling emotional. He continued, "I want to help you, Victoria. You once told me you only want peace and a chance to cook. So I have decided to open a restaurant for you. A place where you can cook the way you love and serve people from your heart." Victoria's eyes widened. "A restaurant? For me?" Mr. William nodded. "Yes, fully yours. I will fund it. I will give you everything you need. You have a gift, Victoria. The world needs to taste that gift." Victoria covered her mouth, fighting back tears. I don't know what to say." Mr. Williams smiled softly. "Just say yes." Victoria nodded slowly, tears filling her eyes. "Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much." He reached out and touched her shoulders gently. "You deserve it." 3 weeks later, a beautiful signboard was placed in front of a brand new building in the heart of the city. The signboard read, "Victoria's Kitchen, the taste of love." The opening day was full of excitement. People gathered outside the restaurant. Some came out of curiosity. Others came because they had heard about the young woman who made the billionaire's daughter eat again. Victoria stood inside her new restaurant wearing a clean chef coat. Her neckerchief was neatly tied. Behind her, the kitchen sparkled with new equipment, shiny pots, and ingredients she once only dreamed of. On her first official day of work, the first customer walked in. It was the taxi driver from River Lane Trenches. "Victoria, you mean you're the owner of this place?" he asked in surprise. Victoria smiled brightly and nodded. "Yes. Come in. You were one of the first people who believed in my cooking." Soon, more people entered. Journalists filled the doorway, taking pictures and asking questions. Mr. William and Judith, sitting in her wheelchair, sat quietly at a special table near the window. Victoria served them herself. She placed a hot plate of jollof rice and pepper chicken in front of Judith. Judith smiled, clapped her hands, and said, "You prepare the best food in the whole world." The entire room cheered. Camera flashes lit up the restaurant. Everyone wanted a taste of Victoria's food. But outside, standing quietly in a corner with sunglasses on, was Nancy. She watched in silence, her heart burning with jealousy. "That poor girl really made it," she whispered. Hannah and Agnes stood beside her, both speechless. Nancy turned around and walked away, but deep inside, she was not finished. Victoria's success was only beginning, and so was the storm that was coming. Victoria's Kitchen soon became the talk of the city. From the day it opened, it was always full. People lined up before sunrise just to taste her meals. Her food was not just delicious. It carried something more. A taste of home, a feeling of love, and the peace that comes from a kind heart. Food bloggers, TV reporters, and even tourists began to visit. Victoria stayed humble. Every morning, she knelt beside her bed and prayed before going to the restaurant. She still cooked most of the meals herself, and she still tied her scarf the same way she did when she cooked by the roadside. Inside the restaurant, there was a special corner with a golden plaque that read, "Dedicated to Judith's mommy, the taste that lives on." Mr. William and Judith in her wheelchair visited every weekend. Victoria became like a second mother to Judith. She helped with homework, brushed her hair, and tucked her into bed whenever she slept over at the mansion. Their bond grew stronger with every passing day. 4 months passed quickly, and Victoria's kitchen was still the most talked about restaurant in the city. One evening, after closing the restaurant, Victoria stepped outside to breathe in some fresh air. The sky was dark and calm. The stars were bright. A soft evening breeze brushed her face. She heard a familiar voice behind her. "Victoria." She turned. It was Mr. William. He was standing beside his car, looking gentle and quiet, almost nervous. "I didn't know you were coming," Victoria said softly. "I wanted to see you," he replied with a warm smile. "Can we take a short drive? Just you and me." Victoria hesitated for a second, then nodded. He opened the car door for her. She got in, and he closed it gently. They drove through the quiet city roads. No traffic, no noise, just peaceful wind and slow music playing from the car speakers. Victoria looked through the window. The city lights glowed softly. Her heart beat slowly, but she didn't know why. After a few minutes, Mr. William turned into a quiet open space, a small garden area with trees and soft lights. It was calm and beautiful, far away from noise. He parked the car and stepped out. Victoria stepped out too. They both stood under a tall tree, the breeze blowing gently around them. "Victoria," William began, his voice low and sincere, "do you know how proud I am of you?" Victoria looked down shyly. "You gave me a chance, so." He touched her arm lightly. "Victoria, please, call me William." They both smiled. There was a soft silence, only the sound of leaves moving in the wind. Then William took a deep breath and looked into her eyes. "Victoria, I don't want to imagine my life or Judith's life without you. You gave my daughter back her joy. You gave me back my peace. You brought light into our home." Victoria blinked slowly, her heart beating faster. "What are you trying to say, William?" He reached into his pocket. Victoria's breath caught. He pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it. Inside was a simple, beautiful ring shining under the garden lights. "Victoria," he said softly, "will you marry me? Not because of your cooking. Not because you healed Judith. I want to marry you because of your heart, your strength, your kindness, and your love." Victoria gasped. Her hands covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. "Yes, yes, William. I will," she whispered. "I have always loved you, from the very first day I stepped into your house." He smiled gently, slipped the ring on her finger, and pulled her into a warm embrace. They hugged tightly under the quiet night sky, with the stars shining above them. A few months later, the wedding shook the whole city. It was grand, but full of deep meaning. Victoria wore a simple white gown, holding Judith's hand as she rolled beside her in her wheelchair. The crowd stood up, clapping and smiling with joy. Even people from Victoria's old neighborhood arrived in buses, wearing their finest clothes. They were all there, cheering, crying, celebrating her happiness. Far away, Nancy, Hannah, and Agnes watched the wedding on TV. Nancy grabbed the remote and turned it off in anger, unable to watch any longer. "I should have treated her better. If I knew her life would turn out this way," she murmured bitterly. But for Victoria, that chapter was gone. She had forgiven them. She had moved on. She had bloomed. 1 year later, something beautiful happened. Judith, who had spent so much of her life in a wheelchair, began to make amazing progress in her physiotherapy sessions. On that special day, the therapist told her to try standing again. Victoria held Judith's hands gently. Mr. Williams stood close, his heart racing. Judith took a slow breath, placed her feet firmly on the floor, and began to rise. Her legs trembled, her hands shook, but she didn't stop. Bit by bit, second by second, Judith stood up straight. For the first time since the accident, she stood on her own, without crutches, without help. Mr. William covered his mouth as tears streamed down his face. "My baby, you are standing," he whispered. Victoria's eyes glistened with tears. She smiled proudly and said softly, "You're doing it, Judith. You're really doing it." Judith looked up at both of them, her eyes shining with hope. "I want to walk again," she whispered. "I'm trying." Everyone in the room clapped softly. It was a small moment, but a powerful miracle. A sign that one day soon, Judith would walk again. And in that quiet room, filled with tears, love, and gratitude, their story found its perfect ending. The end. Moral lesson. True love and healing don't come from wealth. They come from the heart. Never look down on anyone, because the person you least expect may be the one who brings light back into your life. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more emotional stories like this. Thank you for watching.